I wanna hear you scream.
Hey guys, long time no see. Welcome to another episode of Meyer Music. I know it's been like 7 or 8 months since I last uploaded, but I'm back. I had recorded videos back in like September and October that I never uploaded because I didn't think they worked out too well, and I decided I'd come back to YouTube eventually, like soon, but that was like 6 months ago now since that I told myself that. But yeah, I'm finally back. With this whole coronavirus thing happening, I lost my job. I worked at Goodrich Quality Theaters. It was like my weekend job when I wasn't at school. And they decided they were dealing with Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and they decided, since they weren't making money because of the coronavirus being closed, they decided they were never going to reopen again. So I lost my job. I have no income coming in. But, you know, I'm a junior in high school, whatever. But, I'm stuck here at home doing online school with pretty much nothing to do besides Xbox, and Xbox gets really boring after a while, so I'm here, recording another video. So today's video is over Christian hard rock band Red, their new album Declaration, which came out. It was supposed to drop today at the time of recording this, April 10th, but it actually dropped April 3rd instead, and they sent the CDs early, so I got mine April 1st. And I pre-ordered the CD and vinyl. I still haven't gotten the vinyl yet. It's supposed to be black and red swirl, which is really cool, but I haven't gotten it yet. Hopefully I get it soon. But yeah, the CD here is, I think it's called a slip case. It's not like the regular plastic CD case, which I prefer the regular plastic CD case over a slip case, but you know, it's still cool. It's cool that they sent the CDs 2 days early so I could get a cool look at the album before then and gather my thoughts. So yeah, let's talk background on Declaration. So Red's last album was Gone back in 2017. That saw them experiment with some electronics and stuff, kind of like the band Star Set, which I actually tried reviewing their album Divisions, and that's one of the videos I scrapped like 6 months ago. Side note. But anyway, that saw them use some electronics. Not everyone loved that album. I personally really liked it, though. I thought it was a great album. And yeah, that was their last album with Essential Records, I think, because their record contract was up. And so Red decided they were going to go independent. And so yeah, this is the first album since then. There were 5 singles released on this album. Now, as you can see here, this is a 10-track album. It's 38 minutes long, I believe. Gone was 37 minutes long, so this is barely longer than that. But yeah, they released 5 singles beforehand, and I listened to all of them because I could not stop myself, because I really like Red. They're one of my favorite bands, probably. They're kind of growing off me, to be honest, but they're still in like my top 10. But yeah, so the first single, The Evening Hate, was released in June of 2019, I believe. Then the second single was From the Ashes. That was back in July or August. The Evening Hate and From the Ashes, I loved The Evening Hate to begin with, and I thought From the Ashes was good, but not great, which I ended up liking them about the same, because Evening Hate grew off me a little bit, and then From the Ashes grew on me, and I'm going to talk about my opinion of them later now. But, yeah, so those were the first 2 singles. And that was back when Red, I think their initial plan was to just release songs and not do an actual album. So they released those 2 songs, and then the fans were like, oh, when's the album coming out? And they're like, okay, I guess we'll make an album. So they recorded 8 more songs. The first of the rest of the singles was Sever, that came out in January of 2020. And then All For You came out in February, and the War We Made came out in March. And I tried not to listen to All For You and the War We Made, but I just couldn't stop myself. So now I had 5 new songs to listen to on here. Yeah, let me say that I think releasing 5 songs before the 10-track album drops is not a good idea at all. The last album that I listened to, where I listened to all 5 singles on a 10-track album, was Breaking Benjamin Ember back in 2018. And I never returned to that album anymore because it kind of spoiled it for me, honestly. I hope this isn't that way, but we'll see. But yeah, I think the singles were really solid overall. But now we get to this declaration as a whole. And this definitely sees Red move into new territory that they really haven't covered before. Before this album, I'd say that Of Beauty and Rage was their heaviest. But now that Declaration is out, I'd probably say that this album is their heaviest that they've ever released. I mean, crushing guitar riffs, screams from Michael, drums like I have never heard before on a Red album. Yeah, Declaration is kind of a Red album like no other. No, I can't say I'm in love with everything on Declaration, but the Red definitely covered new territory. All For You, Infidel, Cauterize, Floats. I'm going to talk about that song later. The Victim and Only Fight. Those songs are some of the heaviest Red songs ever released. I mean, Infidel, which is the second track on the album, that song really surprised me. It definitely, the chorus of that song kind of reminds me of Beauty and Rage a bit. Infidel is a great song. It's definitely in my top 3. Cauterize is the third song on the album, and I was really surprised at Cauterize too, because it just goes right in with this guitar riff that sounds like a Deftones guitar riff. I was like really intrigued. The guitar riff sounds very similar to Deftones' song Doomed User, which was on their album Gore from 2016. And I mean, listen to both those songs. Those guitar riffs sounds very similar. But yeah, Cauterize is probably my favorite on this album. It's probably in my top 15 Red songs, to be completely honest. I love that song. The chorus is great. The songwriting is pretty good. And Float, which is the 6th track on the album, the next new song. Float, I mean, when I first heard this song, I just got like goosebumps. I think Float is the heaviest Red song ever released. I mean, it just jumps right in with these heavy guitar riffs. Drums like no other. Like Dan Johnson is just like going at it with this just heavy drum beat. But the chorus kind of lifts up a little bit. Let me say that I don't think this song doesn't work the best for me because the verse is so much different than the chorus. I feel like they could have just made an entire song out of, well, not like an entire song, but they could have expanded on what the verses were doing and just made a whole song like that. But they kind of went for a more melodic chorus, and I think that's fine. The 7th song, The Victim, this is another one of my favorites on the album. I mean, like I said before, it has its melodic moments, but it's also really heavy. Track 9, Only Fight. This is probably one of the most unique Red songs I have ever heard. The verses of Only Fight sound I mean, it doesn't sound like anything the band have ever done. And then the chorus jumps in with Michael screaming, "Fight, only fight," I believe those are the lyrics, over and over again, which it kind of got old for me. But this song is actually slowly growing on me, and I think it would become one of my favorite songs on the album. But yeah, all those 5 new songs really show the band moving into some new territory, and I think that's great. Now, let me say on this album that I was a bit disappointed. Now, every Red album before this has some sort of change of pace, like a ballad, like End of Silence had Pieces, it ended with Already Over Part 2, those were 2 like ballads. Innocence and Instinct had like Start Again was really melodic, Never Be the Same was kind of an acoustic guitar led song, and then Take It All Away, which is an amazing song, one of the most underrated Red songs ever. That song ended the album, and it was an amazing ballad. Until We Have Faces had Hymn for the Missing, and Not Alone. Yeah. Release the Panic. Now, I know that a lot of people do not like that album. I personally think it's still a good album, but it's definitely the weakest in their catalog. But Release the Panic had Hold Me Now, and it also had some other kind of ballad songs. To kind of change up the pace from like the heavier, standard Red songs, A Beauty and Rage had Of These Chains, and then it had some other ballad, kind of power ballad songs later on. And then Gone had Coming Apart. I'm not the biggest fan of that song, but I think it's okay for the most part. And then it ended with Singularity, and the bonus track, The Mask Slips Away, which is amazing. Those were ballad-like songs. But yeah, all those albums had a change of pace. This album, the closest thing to a ballad that it has, I'd say, is The War We Made, which that still starts out with a guitar riff, and it still has Michael screaming in it. And it's not, I mean, I don't know. I feel like they could have made a complete ballad out of The War We Made, and I feel like they also could have done it with From the Ashes, with the chorus from that song. Now, From the Ashes, I'd say it's maybe my least favorite song on the album. It doesn't do a lot for me anymore. And The Evening Hate, that song also definitely grew off me. I'd still say it's pretty good, but I don't know. The Evening Hate, From the Ashes, while we're at it, I don't think they're the greatest songs on the album. And ending the album with From the Ashes is kind of an interesting choice. Be a Declaration, I really wish there was an actual ballad, like piano, which there are pianos and strings on this album, but they're very subdued and kind of fall in the background of the mix. Like, I don't know. A Beauty and Rage, for instance, had a lot of string sections. That's why I love that album so much. And pretty much every one of their albums except Release the Panic and a lot of Gone had a lot of string sections. And it was beautiful sounding. It sounded like a movie soundtrack. It was very theatrical. And this album, they kind of moved away from that, which, kind of saddens me. This album just isn't very dynamic. And I feel like it's just every single song, one after another, it just kind of falls into the same formula. Like, okay, we're going to start out with this loud guitar riff, then Michael's going to let out a long scream at the end of every single song. He does that on every single song except The War We Made, where he lets out a short scream. I mean, I know they're trying to be heavy and they're trying to prove something, but it just gets kind of old for me, to be completely honest. Declaration, it's not a very dynamic album, and that definitely hurts it, in my opinion. And also, let's bring up the production on this album. I think this is, if Release the Panic had not happened, I think this album would be Red's weakest production. I mean, not only does the mix sound not very muddied, it sounds kind of muddied, and there's a lot of clipping. Like, you can tell that they recorded every single part of every single song in separate takes. I don't know. I just like, you can tell like it transitions from a scream back to singing, back to scream, and it just like cuts and it goes back. I don't know. This album, there's a lot of clipping in the production. It doesn't sound very clean. It sounds a bit messy. Also, let's bring up The Evening Hate and From the Ashes. You can tell that both of those songs were recorded at a completely different time because the production sounds, first of all, worse than the other 8 songs that are on here. The production sounds different. Like, the drums sound different to me. You can tell that they were recorded at a different time. But yeah, I think the production isn't terrible. I think it's okay. It's better than Release the Panic, but, it just doesn't live up to everything else they've put out. The songwriting on Declaration, actually, it has a lot of dark moments, but it also has some uplifting songs. I think Sever is about, kind of, in the song, I believe it says, sever these fraying ties, cannot replace this life forever. I feel like that kind of means, I kind of relate to these lyrics in some way. I feel like Sever kind of, the meaning of that song is kind of breaking away from something that was negative in your life, or breaking away from something, like you were trying to please someone, or you were trying to do something that wasn't good for you, and you decided, what, it's just, I gotta get rid of this thing in my life. From the Ashes is a kind of an uplifting song. We are fighting to survive. I don't even remember the lyrics after that. We live, we die, we fall, we rise. The lyrics on that song kind of seem a bit samey. I don't know. I've heard a lot of songs that have lyrical messages like that. I don't know. I mean, if I wanted to listen to a song with that message, I would go listen to a different song. I don't know. But yeah, about the darker moments on the album, though. All For You, it's kind of about realizing that, why was I scared of you? Why did I let you control my life? I couldn't see before that I was living for you. I did it all for you. That's pretty self-explanatory. Only Fight, I feel like that song's about, I don't remember the lyrics, but I remember it being something about, like, I tried doing this for you. I tried to please you, but yet we still fight. We only fight, and I just can't please you. That's kind of the message I took away from Only Fight. But yeah, there are some darker moments on Declaration, but there are also some more uplifting lyrical messages, and I feel like pretty much every Red album is like that. The songwriting, it's definitely not among the best in their career. It's kind of like what you'd expect from Red, I would think. Yeah, but overall, Declaration, it seems a bit messy. It's a little too short too, at 38 minutes. I don't know. I still think it's a really good album. The production on Declaration, it's not great, but it's not bad either. It's just kind of okay. The songwriting is pretty good for the most part. And this album is definitely the heaviest Red has ever done. And Declaration it isn't dynamic enough for me. It doesn't have a ballad in it, really. Excuse me. I don't know. It just felt like they were trying to prove that they could be heavy or something, which, I don't know. And I feel like Red, I feel like they're always trying to, like, please people. I feel like they're always trying to please their fans, which, it's good to care about what your fans want and all that, but, I feel like as bands, as artists, you should try to just do what you want, do what pleases you. And I feel like this album just kind of, I don't know. I don't know if I'll return to it that much in the future. I'd still say it's pretty solid for the most part, but I don't know. I mean, if I wanted to go listen to a Red album, I would go listen to End of Silence. I mean, pretty much any of the other ones except Release the Panic. I never returned to Release the Panic, but I returned to all the other ones. I mean, I even returned to Gone, and I listened to Gone after I listened to this album a lot, and I listened to it, and it was, I mean, I listened to it, and it was easily better than this album, easily. I mean, it was just more dynamic. They experimented more with their sound, I would say, kind of. But yeah, I kind of just wish Red would. I know this album is experimental with the heaviness, but I feel like they'd experiment more than that. Yeah, overall, I don't. If you're not a Red fan, some parts of this album might make you rethink them, but I don't think overall Declaration is really gonna make you a fan of the band, really. Overall, I think Declaration is pretty solid. I think it deserves a strong 7 out of 10. But I'm going to go ahead and give it a really light 8 out of 10. I think it's a great album. I say that with some hesitation. I don't love everything about it, but I think it's really good. This album might grow on me in the future, but it might grow off me even. I don't know. We'll have to see in the future. Yeah, I think it's pretty solid. If you're a Red fan, I mean, you obviously have to listen to this. I mean, it has some of the band's most unique moments, but also it's not as dynamic as I had hoped it would be. So yeah, that does it for my review of Declaration by Red. I have some cool video ideas in the future that I'm really hoping to do. I want to do some vinyl videos because I've been collecting vinyl. I actually think I'm going to record another video here in a minute of me unboxing a vinyl that I recently got. Yeah, that should be up a little after this video of the Declaration review. But yeah, I have a lot of other video ideas in the future that I hope I can execute correctly. So yeah, stay tuned for those. This has been Meyer Music. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you guys next time.